This is Margaret McCrawl. You're listening to Business Life Works, the radio show that coaches you on how to use the harmonic matching process, a 4-step process to create a fulfilling life. Today, our guest, Doreen Mary Bray, is going to be talking with us about her book, The Angel and the Avatar, Heaven, which is all about healing ourselves, healing our soul. So let me give you a little introduction, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about Doreen Mary Bray. But I think it's such an important topic today because right now there are so many people feeling and absorbing what they call chaos. So across every generation, stress, anxiety, and burnout are on the rise. But according to author and spiritual teacher Doreen Mary Bray, what we're really facing isn't just a mental health crisis. It's a soul crisis. In her new book, The Angel and the Avatar, Doreen reveals how losing connection with our inner selves has left millions feeling unfulfilled, anxious, and exhausted. A naturopath, shaman, and teacher for more than 40 years, she offers a fresh, practical perspective on how to restore balance through simple daily practices that realign the mind, body, and soul. Doreen helps audiences understand the hidden causes of modern stress and how to turn sensitivity, overthinking, and self-doubt into tools for healing and personal growth. So, Doreen, let me talk a little bit more in terms of you. You draw on the ancient wisdom to really help us with connecting with and realigning the mind, body, and the spirit. Let's get started with that. How, when you draw on ancient wisdom and modern understanding, tell us about that a little bit, your history in terms of your own studies.
Thank you, Margaret. When I was a very young child, I always saw reality as moving particles of light of every color. So I naturally, as I grew older, became interested in how the physical structure and the energetic structure fit together and how it could be brought forward from both learning ancient wisdom and modern spirituality, how it could be brought forward into our modern lives and integrated in a way that would help people to feel more secure in their bodies, in their lives, and in their relationships.
Wow. That sounds beautiful. That sounds beautiful. Let's talk a little bit, because you say in your book that modern stress has a spiritual cause. Explain what you mean by that.
Modern life asks us to live in contradiction to our deepest nature. We're told to prioritize productivity over presence, achievement over authenticity, and external validation over inner knowing. The stress that accumulates is not just physical or emotional. I believe it's spiritual. It's when the soul's natural rhythms are ignored and our connection to purpose, intuition, inner guidance is disrupted, and that's when tension and unease, or as some say dis-ease, arise. A spiritual stress, in my mind, in essence, is the soul signaling that it's being ignored and that it longs to be seen, heard, and integrated into our lives.
Say that last sentence again. I want to just absorb that again. Please, repeat it.
I will do the best I can. I feel that spiritual stress, in essence, is the soul signaling that it's being ignored and that it longs to be seen, heard, and integrated.
That resonates with such a truth. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. I really do. I think that's deep, and I think that our listeners really need to hear what you're saying, signaling, the soul signaling it's being ignored. Because it's really our best friend. It's our, in my mind, if I use simple words, the soul I think of as my best friend, my coach, my guide, all knowing, can really, anything that I might be feeling stressed about, it can help me resolve, It can give me what I need to resolve it in my mind. And yet we do sometimes go on our own way, our own path, and it's like entering quicksand where we just keep going, sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think the soul is kind of crying out there saying, I'm here. I'm right here. So,
well, actually, that's exactly why I called my book The Angel and the Avatar, because I believe we are the angel, that's the soul, and the avatar is this physical body that the soul, or the angel, however you want to verbalize that, works through to come into form, to be able to feel the wind in the hair, to smell the salt air of the ocean, to feel the warmth of sand on the feet, to hear the birds sing, to experience this amazing reality that we have been birthed into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we get lost in our troubles or our fears or our busyness or whatever. We kind of lose all that. We lose sight of being in the present.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a very, very good point. So, in your experience, the real soul crisis behind so much of anxiety and disconnection people feel today is really what you just explained. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Well, definitely it's a connection to ourselves, as you said, and which is the larger flow of life. People are living fragmented these days, experiencing their bodies, minds, and spirit as separate rather than a harmonious whole. We find that through medicine, through all the different aspects that we go through with our teachings and lessons, both educational and home-based. So this disconnect, I believe, is what breeds anxiety, emptiness, a sense of something vital is missing. I remember my younger days, people used to say, I have to find myself. I have to get out of here and find myself, because we've always felt that something vital was missing inside of ourselves. So my work has taught me that healing begins when we recognize that the soul is not lost. It's merely obscured by our patterns, beliefs, programming, and the energies that are there. All that needs to happen is that they're transformed, which creates reconnection, restoration, conscious awakening. I believe these are true antidotes.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point. I think about my own life, and between my work and my my mission, and I also did some rescue work with animals, and I find that the pets, some cats, some dogs, they know what's going on with me, and they call me to be more in the present when I get so busy. And I'm going from this thing to that thing, and I can feel them like watching me, like just thinking, if she only knew, if she could just take a moment and breathe, right? And it's very amazing when I look at them and I can see what they're saying to me, and I know they're right. And I find that they are incredibly helpful to me. And then some of them are getting older and have had some illnesses, but I find when I'm giving them medicine, I'm helping them with their healing work, it's really helping me probably more, because I'm in the present fully when I'm with them and I'm helping them. And so I found myself thinking about what is the secondary gain with illness. for the person experiencing it or the pet experiencing it and the people around, because there's always secondary gains on one level or another. And being able to get back into the present when you're sick or somebody else is sick and you're helping them to heal, I find that brings me back into the present very quickly. Although I think there are many people who get sick and they don't get in the present, they just start chasing, the situation. Does that make sense?
Totally. I have a dog and a cat, and like you, they constantly bring me back to present, to being there with them. Their reality is so different than ours that they're just in the moment. Well, as you know, you leave the house and you come back 5 minutes later and your dog is like, oh my God, it's you, right? They're so present and so aware of who you are and where you are and their excitement and joy. Oh my God, if humans, if we could experience that same excitement when we see someone we've lived with for 20 or 30 years or, to actually be present to them through their changes in life and all of the steps that they have gone through, I believe that we would change this world on a very deep level.
Mm-hmm. It is pretty fascinating, the role of animals in our present day. So let's move on a little bit. You use the word rift, that there's a rift between the spiritual and physical selves. You've already addressed some of that, but is there more to talk about that in terms of healing, what you call the rift?
Yes, healing this rift, which is this disconnection that creates the anxiety and the emptiness and feelings that something vital is missing. Healing this rift brings awareness and intention, but it is an intentional practice. It starts with simple yet profound acts, listening to your inner voice, which means just pausing, observing the subtle sensations in your body. For example, if you are sitting quietly with your eyes closed, can you feel your heartbeat? Can you feel the tingling in your fingers, that aliveness that's very present, that's there? Can you honor the guidance that comes from the soul? I believe that what heals the rifts is rituals, deep breathing, meditative practices, energetic cleansing. These all create an alchemical transformation of the emotional patterns and help us bridge this gap. I believe that over time these practices weave the spiritual and physical in a coherent whole, which does allow the soul to inhabit the body fully. I feel that our lives, because there's such a disconnect, we're not fully, the soul is not fully in the body. With a lot of people, it's not even near the body, sorry to say. But through sight, I do see that some people are extremely dense. They're very rigid, which, if you think of the soul, it's a high vibrational essence. And the body, if it's dense and heavy, the soul is two opposites for it to fully inhabit that structure. So by living with purpose, clarity, being present, deep breath, not just shallow breath, but all the way into the abdomen, these are the things that heal the rift.
The simple things, really.
They're all very simple, yet they're what some people consider time-consuming. They'll say, oh, I don't have the time for that.
Right. There are so many people who, they're running. They're like constantly I'm not talking about busy running. I'm talking about they find things to run away from the connection to the soul. And whether it's anger, they have excuses, There's excuses. And maybe anger, maybe something they didn't like that this person did or whatever. And I love the work of Abraham Hicks because
I do too.
Yeah, they use the term mind your own business. And years ago when I first started, I went to some of their workshops and and I heard that, I was like a little perturbed. But of course it hit home for me because I, like many people, were using different things as excuses. You can use anything. My pet died, or my boyfriend broke up with me, or I lost my job, or, when you have that inner peace, you don't fear when those things occur. And I'm not saying we don't grieve, because of course we do grieve when these things happen. I grieve if I lose a pet, a loved one. I would grieve if I lost my work. I mean, we have the grief, but some people never really step through it, and so they just keep building a list of the things that aren't working, and then they have a lot of anger. So all these things build that wall between ourselves and our soul, don't they?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Huge wall. So I want to bring our listeners back to some things you talk about in your book. You describe challenges as gateways of transformation. And how can someone in pain begin to see their struggle as a sacred teacher? How would you explain that to our listeners?
Yeah, pain is a difficult one for most people living with it. In my perspective, I believe that pain, when seen through the lens of the soul, is never meaningless. It's a signal, a guide, even a doorway into deeper understanding. If someone has pain in their body, what I've seen is that they tense their muscles around the pain area. They walk differently. They hold themselves differently, all in tension because of the pain. The language might also become very tense. But what I found with body work, breathing into the body, releasing all of those stress muscles, taking time to notice how you walk, how you move yourself, all of these things change how we feel pain. So to me, it's a signal. It's a doorway to begin seeing these challenges as sacred teachers, to cultivate presence and curiosity rather than expressing it as resistance. So I might ask, what is this experience inviting me to see, to release, or to transform? Because there's something there. There's a reason. If I bang my toe against the wall, I'll stop. Okay, why did this happen? Well, I was moving too quickly. I was in my head. I was projecting another story, not present. So that, okay, that's all that was about, was to bring me into presence.
No, I get that. I remember in my 20s, I kept twisting my ankle. I was moving so fast in all aspects of my life, and I was definitely not living in the present. I was living far into the future. And so I was constantly like stepping off a curb and not paying attention, or going up and down the steps so fast that I might miss a step. And I don't drink, I don't use drugs, never did any of that. But you might have thought I did with the number of times that I had messed up my ankle. And I remember reading the one of the books by Louise Hay, and beginning to understand that there was a reason for that, and it was my busyness and escaping the present through my busyness, and it stopped. When I realized it and set clear intentions to live more purposefully and in the present, being aware of the future but not living in the future, then all of that stopped and it never happened again. But I think what you're doing here is you're bringing things into people's consciousness, aren't you?
Definitely. It's to understand that pain is not there to punish us, only to awaken us, to refine our awareness, and to guide us towards wholeness.
That's a lovely way to put it, and I think such a positive way, because like you said, when people are in pain, or when you're helping someone you love that's in pain, you have to begin to see that differently, and yet have the empathy and the compassion for anyone dealing with pain, right?
Yes, and empathy and compassion for our own suffering also.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I remember I was working with healing concepts, and at the time I had a little bunny rabbit that was my pet. I had two of them. And one of them was going through some major illnesses, and I was starting to apply everything I was reading and beginning to understand of how critical it is to, pay attention and see yourself doing better, which is very challenging. It can be very challenging when you or someone you love is in pain and you're not seeing them get better, yet at the same time you're holding that vibration of getting better, right? You're holding that positive energy around them, and I used to do that. I would practice with this little rabbit who I absolutely was in love with. He was my first pet as an adult, and I would see him, he wasn't eating, and I would hold the vision of him eating, and then I would talk to him about how delicious the hay was, the food, and, somebody else would think I was absolutely nuts, but I really worked with these concepts with him. It was very heartbreaking because, the vet said he was going to die, and explained the illness to me, but I kept, holding a different vision with him, and next thing you know, this little rabbit did start to eat, and he did completely come through this illness, and instead of dying at 4 years of age from this illness, he lived to be 11, which was an old rabbit.
Wow.
But he really was my teacher, because I had to understand these things that you're talking about and practice it, when really I just wanted to go cry at the thought of losing him. So finding that balance. Some people would say, well, you're not being honest with yourself. You're not being truthful. But, or you're being delusional. Or So it's finding that balance, because before he healed, I found I had to really accept his death, that if he died, I had to find peace with that. And when I found peace with him dying, I no longer was vibrating the energy of what if, right? The fear. And so that came first, was finding peace with his death, and then shifting through that into holding the vision of him being well. Not from a place of fear of him dying. Does that make sense?
Very powerful, yeah.
It was very powerful. And so when you talk about these things, I think it's so important, such a critical topic, and it's not simple. It's not like, just the power of positive thinking. So going forward, what would you say one small practical step anyone could take today to restore the sense of balance into their life?
I believe that it begins first with breath and awareness, to just pause, to breathe deeply. As I mentioned before, most people has a shallow breath, so they're just breathing in their lungs and quickly. That is a panic breath. It can lead to all kinds of stress and anxiety, just that way of breathing alone. So by taking a deep breath, you're resetting your whole system, stopping to feel the body from the inside when you're taking that breath, so conscious attention, inviting the soul to speak, to listen. It's always just a whisper, but to honor what arises. From these small acts, a cascade of alignment begins. Clarity of mind, vitality of body, resonance of spirit. It's in these small conscious moments that transformation begins. Gateways open, and the alchemy of the soul unfolds naturally as it should. It can't be forced. It can't be coerced. It can't be touched by the constant chatter in the brain that says, do this, do that, listen here, listen there. It has to be attained through no thought, through conscious attention, body awareness, feeling your breath, feeling your heartbeat, just feeling.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a very, very beautiful way to put this. And I think when you think of the soul wanting to connect, when people stop and they're just breathing deeply, they're in the present. So their soul can come in. They kind of in that moment remove the layers of busyness and fears and anger and whatever might be padding the space between, creating a space or filling a space between ourselves and our soul. So thank you for that. You speak of alchemy of the soul in your book. Talk about that. What do you mean by that?
The alchemy of the soul is a process of transforming every aspect of ourselves. We've heard of alchemy, and a lot of people think it's taking something material like lead and changing it into gold. But alchemy is really a process of transforming our emotional, mental, and spiritual body into greater clarity and strength and wholeness. So the lead is the stress, the worry, the anxiety, and that would be the lead, the heaviness in our life, the congestion in our life, and those unresolved patterns that then are transmuted. That's the gold, the awareness, the empowerment, conscious living. So to me, this work is both internal and practical. It touches our thoughts, our habits, our programming, our health, and our relationships. So it's a sacred science, integrating heaven and earth within our human experience.
Lovely. Okay. So is that something that you feel you address in some of your classes?
Every work I do addresses this alchemy
of the soul.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Wonderful. So the ancient practices of shamanism or energy medicine, how do you feel it can be best integrated into our modern life, our busy modern lives?
Yeah, these practices are not relics of the past. They're timeless tools. Shamanism of old, the Aboriginals, these are all rites of passage that, again, are timeless tools. So even in a few minutes each day, connecting with nature, that's shamanism. Practicing mindful breath work, that's spirituality. Holding space for reflection, that's connection with the soul. These things can bring profound alignment. The key is to adapt them with intention, letting their essence infuse into our daily lives. When practiced consistently, they awaken awareness, deepen intuition, and transform ordinary experiences into portals of growth and wholeness. I believe they allow modern humans to live fully while remaining spiritually connected. that's the key, living fully while remaining spiritually connected.
Mm-hmm. It is somewhat of a balancing act, isn't it? Being in our present day world where it is pretty chaotic on many levels. That's lovely. Do you feel we're seeing a collective awakening right now? And if so,
yes.
What? Give us some idea of what signs you were noticing.
I see it quietly, but unmistakably. I remember when I was young, you'd go to the bookstore and there would be very few books, certainly nothing on spirituality. There'd be witchcraft, psychology, philosophy, occultism. That was about it. Go into any bookstore right now and it's wall-to-wall self-help, healing, spirituality, and it's amazing, but that shows the world that we are changing in every single way. So more people are searching for meaning beyond the material successes. They're questioning old patterns and seeking connection with their inner selves. So there is a rising recognition that health, relationship, and purpose are deeply intertwined with consciousness. We're at a moment where the soul of humanity is stirring. It's subtle, but it's there. Signs appear in the growing interest, as I said, in mindfulness, holistic healing, spiritual teachings, and communities that prioritize inner growth and self-sustainability.
Okay. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, then, how do you feel your work is going to evolve in the next decade, given what the signs you're seeing? What do you expect to be doing?
Certainly continuing to expand myself as I expand my understanding, because we are all in growth and should be in growth until the day we take our last breath. I do believe as I expand, so does the world, because we are not fragmented. We are part of the whole. So as one evolves, all evolve. So I believe that every bit of expansion I do changes and influences the whole. If each one of us pursued the same quest, the world we live in would be very different in only a very short time.
What was that last thing you said?
I believe that if everybody took the time to expand, which also means releasing all of the old programming, the negativity, becoming their true authentic self, that then the world would change the way it is in every single aspect
absolutely.
of it.
And I think that's a big step to say what you just said, for people to actually do that. And I think what you're saying is so critical, and I just want to suggest to any of our listeners that they start working with some of these concepts by just setting intentions, to set the intention. And then in my own work on myself is that when I set that intention, I feel like my soul reaches out, taps me on the shoulder and says, didn't you say you wanted to, be more in the present? Or it's almost like, that soul's my best friend, and I've given it permission to step into my world that might be a little crazy or feel a little chaotic, and slow me down or get me more into the present or help me to see differently from a different perspective. So it's a big chunk to become more authentic, but not with the soul's help. It's actually, I think, a lot easier. So, and that's all your work. That's what?
Sorry. It can start quite simply. I believe we're not, like we are told, we're three-dimensional beings, but most people, they take their shower, they grab their coffee or whatever, head out the door. They head to the car. They're one. I believe they're one-dimensional beings. They don't smell the fresh air as the door opens. They don't hear the birds singing. They don't feel the sun in their face. They don't recognize the world around them. They're beelining while their head is in chaos, thinking about their day ahead. They're not present. We are supposed to be using all of our senses, hearing, smelling, tasting, seeing, feeling in each moment. And that is the gateway. Being able to feel all 5 senses in the moment.
Wow. That's a beautiful way to put it. For our listeners who haven't read your book, what core message or revelation do you hope the readers will carry with them after finishing your book? People are navigating a world that moves faster than ever, yet their inner landscapes are often remaining unexplored. It's a time of incredible potential, but also intense pressure and disconnection. So I feel that, as people read the book, they start to connect to the parts of themselves that have been left behind. Right. Yes. So I could expand on that, but we're not going to have time today. I'm going to invite our listeners again to buy your book, The Angel and the Avatar, and to go to Doreen's website, which is Doreen Mary Bray, BRAY.com, and to learn more about her work and her classes. Doreen, thanks for being on my show. I look forward to hearing more about your work, other books, other classes. So stay in touch with me. And to my listeners, I will be with you next month. So bye.